For this video, we're going to do an example of solving linear equations. So this is a fairly complex linear equation we have set up here. Right away, I think maybe the first thing we might notice is that we've got fractions involved, and I know a lot of people don't like using fractions. So the first step we're going to do here is actually get rid of the fractions. How we're going to get rid of the fractions here is by looking at the denominators first. So the first one is 1/3, and the other one is 5/6. So our denominators are 3 and 6. So we need a common denominator between 3 and 6, and that would be 6, right? Because 6 is just 6 times 1, and we could also do 3 times 2 gives us 6. So since 6 is our common denominator, we're going to multiply both sides of our equation by 6. It's important when we're solving equations that we always do the same thing to each side. Remember, you can picture in our head that balance scale. We can't do anything that would tip the balance scale over. So both sides by 6. When we do that, we're going to go 6 times 1 divided by 3. We don't need to get into the brackets because this is all being multiplied. Okay. If there weren't brackets there, we would have to multiply each element individually by 6. But since there's brackets, we can just do 6 times 1, which is 6 divided by 3 gives us 2. And on the other side, we have 6 times 5 divided by 6, so that's just 5. Now, we still have some brackets going on, and most importantly, we still have a variable, the variable t, on both sides of the equation. So that makes it harder for us to solve. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is expand my brackets. That means I'm going to multiply 2 by the 5 and by the negative 3t. I'm going to multiply 5 by t and by negative 2. Now I've got my brackets expanded, and I'd like to have all of my variables on the same side of the equation. So I can do that either way. I could subtract 5t from both sides, or I could add 6t to both sides. I think I'm going to add 6t to both sides. Now I've got my variable all on one side of the equation, so I can start using the flowchart strategy. So you'll notice on the right-hand side of the equation, we have t, we have 11, and we have subtract 10. So that's 3 things. So we're going to need 3 boxes going up and then 3 boxes going down. And as always, we're going to start our first box with the variable t. So then I'm looking, what's the first thing that happens to t? Well, the 11 is closest to t. So that means and when I've got 11 directly in front of the variable like that, it means I'm multiplying by 11. The next thing that happens is I subtract 10, so I'm going to take away 10. At this point, my top box has 11t subtract 10, and that matches one whole side of the equation. So I know that I'm done going up, as I'm ready to move on to the other side of the equation, where there's a 10. When I'm moving down my flowchart, I want to do the opposite of everything that happened on the way up. So directly on the right hand side there, I subtracted 10. The opposite would be to add 10. That gives me 20. Next, on the other side there, I'm multiplied by 11. So on the way down, I do the opposite, which is to divide by 11. So that gives me 20 over 11. If I'm going to turn that into a mixed number, I think 11 goes into 20 one time with 9 left over. So 20 over 11 is equal to 1 whole and 9/11.